I think we're going to war. You look at all the charts on everything, like it looks like war charts to me. We have a fake market. Like we just have to admit this is a fake market. It's a monopoly game. See, America's lost its ability to control the whole world. I mean, this is a global market now, and people are going to print to survive, and they're going to take other actions to survive. I'm going to make a prediction. I've never said this to anyone before, so I'll do it on your show, y'all's show.
Hello, I'm Michelle Makori, and this is Kitco News coming to you from Tampa, Florida, from the headquarters of Verified Investing with a very special superstar panel. We have Gary Cadone and Gareth Soloway. Came down to Florida, had to have this G-Force panel.
Absolutely, G squared, baby.
Of course, Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist at Verified Investing, and Gary Cadone, CEO and founder of Cardone Digital Ventures, and we've got a lot to discuss. So very excited to be here. And Gary, last time you were on the show, we had tremendous viewer feedback. They wanted more content. They wanted more Cardone content. So took the opportunity that we're here in fabulous Florida to make this happen. And let's start off where we left off last time. And that was with you saying that Bitcoin is the second largest position in your portfolio. You were saying, this was December of 2023, around December 29th, and you were saying that we were in a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where retail investors, mom and pop, can front-run institutions ahead of the Bitcoin ETF launch. You said stock up on Bitcoin, buy. As we know, Bitcoin this week hitting a new all-time high, $69,324, I believe, according to Coinbase. So Gary, you were right on that move. What have you done in this rally? Did you sell? Did you take some profit? Are you buying? What are you doing right now?
One, it's good to get lucky, hit that little pot, be interviewed at the right time by a professional and make the right call, right? So wait a couple of years and I'll be wrong. But I think the thesis of a very rare commodity will play out that, one, it'll be the greatest investment opportunity in a lifetime, probably many lifetimes. And for me, it's an accumulation play at this point. I think it really is going to depend on what happens in the next week or so. But, all-time highs get punched through. And we're at a not only all-time high, but a market cap all-time high. I think you should really start looking at Bitcoin as a $1.3 trillion asset and just don't even talk about price. We literally get a market cap quote every day on the size of Bitcoin, because I think it's just going to chew through the Googles and the NVIDIAs. I think this is NVIDIA when it was 25 years ago, like literally at the startup of the .com. So, which pretty good indicator what's going to happen. And that's a hardware company. No one would have predicted a hardware company would be trading at $2 trillion. So don't, for me, and it has monopoly exposure. Bitcoin is a monopoly.
So
it has no exposure.
Got it that you're a very, very big Bitcoin bull long term. But in terms of the short term moves, I'm assuming you didn't sell. You're still accumulating.
Didn't sell any.
And
I've never sold a Bitcoin except to buy a company and then I bought it all back.
So can I jump in and just ask a question then? So I guess the question is, we've just run from 50,000 break of the spot ETF high. Would you buy here, or would you say wait for a 10,000 retrace and then buy? For you yourself, are you screwing?
It's the only way. It's the only way I think about it. It's the only way I think about it is, hey, what am I doing? Right. And that's why I'm actually very few people that talk about trading will say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not giving you advice. I'm giving myself advice, right. And actually talking about it, really, just the dialogue going through the what ifs. I've accumulated. I will continue to accumulate. It's 67. This does not bother me at all. In fact, I would suggest that $67,000 today is still risk adjusted, better than it was at 15, 25, 30 pre-ETF. And now we know how much volume. Actually, today we know real volume is showing up here. Real volume. And I think that volume is just the beginning, the trickle coming through the hose. This is not RIAs. Everybody keeps talking about all these institutional RIAs buying Bitcoin. That is not happening.
So when you say risk adjusted, you're saying it's a less riskier bet at 67 now, given that we've got the institutional
We have
play.
so much data. We have people from Qatar flying around meeting with massive whales. So like we're getting a lot of intel we would never have gotten 25 years ago on the video.
Mm-hmm.
The intel in Bitcoin is fascinating. So yeah, I think this is a great investment for my children.
Now, Gareth, I know big picture,
Right.
big bull as well with Bitcoin, but you are expecting a pullback based on our previous conversation and based on what the charts are telling you. You do think that we're going to have a slight pullback, I think, back to the 50,000 support level.
Yeah. So usually assets, and again, I love what you said about it. Don't consider it that it's Bitcoin. Treat it like anything. Look at market cap. Look at whatever. Just so basically, when I look at charts, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything, commodity, crypto, or stock. I just look at human behavior, and human behavior tends to get overly bullish, which then creates these drops like we saw very recently, where it went to 69 and then back to 59 very quickly. And oftentimes it likes to just check back to home base, which is the previous breakout level. So just in terms of expectations, if I look at 1,000 of these charts, generally I would say 800 of those 1,000 will check back to that previous level. Now, could this be to the 200 that don't? There is a possibility, right? You do have this new money coming in. You have all these other factors that are now at play. But I do worry, and again, my only bear case on Bitcoin at this stage is that the risk bubble, the bubble of the assets that we are seeing before us in the stock market and very many other places, if that starts to burst, then I do think that there are people in Bitcoin that are not in it for the 20-year horizon. Mm-hmm. They're in it for the short term. Oh my gosh, this asset is just going nuts. Let me throw money in it at a 10x, 20x, 50x leverage. And those people need to get washed out. And that's usually what happens on those retraces.
Right. And that's the point that we've made, that now you don't just necessarily have the diamond hands, the hodlers. Now that it's a more of a mainstream Wall Street asset, it could be subject to more volatility, to more mainstream Wall Street moves of taking profit, buying back in. A lot more volatility is what you're expecting now as this asset class becomes mainstream.
I think the more extended it gets, the more volatile it can be, like we just saw. But I do think that over time it becomes less and less volatile, because as you get bigger institutions involved, they're not going to get swayed by these price actions or news stories. I mean, they have more data than any of us. And so they're going to just say, hey, listen, we see this big macro picture and we're going to stick with it. So like, you don't see Apple, for instance, or even some of these other stocks moving at 10% clips intraday that are multiple $1 trillion, because there's so many pension funds in them and so many other asset portfolio managers. And I think that's what Bitcoin eventually comes. So eventually people that are in it for the quick buck are going to be like, well, this is no fun. It's like the gold trade, right? I mean, people aren't in gold for the quick buck. And you certainly don't make like 10, 20% in a day on gold. And it's going to be the same type of thing.
Well, you bring up gold. And Gary, it's interesting. The same day that Bitcoin hit a new all-time high, so did gold.
Yes, ma'am.
And gold continued that with another intraday high today. But what do you make of the fact that we've got gold, a safe haven, traditionally seen as a risk-off asset, hitting a new record high on the same day that Bitcoin, which due to the volatility is still seen as a risk-on asset, although the Bitcoiners would like to see it positioned as a safe haven store of value asset in the future, but still very much a riskier trade. Both of these assets hitting new record highs on the same day. What do you make of that, Gary?
I mean, look, I think we're going to war. You look at all the charts on everything, like it looks like war charts to me. We have a fake market. Like, we just have to admit this is a fake market. It's a monopoly game. You can say we're not releasing funds into the world, but we are indeed releasing large amounts of money. Fiat, currency. We're producing fiat. You can get zero information out of China right now. You think they're not printing? See, America's lost its ability to control the whole world. I mean, this is a global market now, and people are going to print to survive, and they're going to take other actions to survive. And I think gold, I actually thought we were seeing a rotation from some of the old gold guys. I think that's happening. Some of the old 30-year-old gold guys are looking at Bitcoin. Any one of them that have 10 Bitcoin, and for 4 or 5 years, they're starting to look at Bitcoin very differently It's actually, they're going to look at Bitcoin and go, oh, wow, this is what I wanted as gold. Speed, they never had that, right? Transportability, fragmentation capability without 40% premiums, right? I mean, in order for somebody to get one of those little Valkyrie things, it's a 40% premium on gold. So I think people are buying in fear of the market just being at max consumption on a bunch of paper products, things that degrade.
Well, you made a pretty big statement, and it was something that you touched on when we spoke about 2 months ago as well. When you said we're going to war, do you mean a real physical war? What do you mean by we're going to war?
Yeah, where people get blown up, like kids die, and then we don't show it on TV. It's happening right now in at least 4 countries I know of. So, granted, nobody's talking about it really, but we're at war. We haven't not been at war for a long time.
When you say we, do you mean the United States?
I believe the United States machinery, equipment, and that is printing. Okay, just because I don't build a tank or send the money to someone, I do a deal through Germany. I go, hey, Germany, I'm going to send you a new T1 tank, but I need you to send Poland your old ones, and then Poland can serve to the Ukrainians. I mean, this is a Ponzi scheme. It's just shuffling nuts so that the senators and the congressmen don't have to say, we actually just created $1 trillion worth of money supply because we made a commitment to give Germany some new tanks. Like, where does this money show up from? Germany can't afford it. Germany absolutely cannot afford this. So we're just moving things around on the chessboard, and sooner or later, this is what gold, silver, and I think Bitcoin was established for. This is why I'm not totally convinced that the S&P could just puke out. And I think it will. And I think short term, you would have a Bitcoin hit. You and I are great doing these shows because I never do any short term trading. It's not what I do for a living anymore. I don't want to do it. He does this 16 hours a day. He's got 5 guys back there looking at every chart, challenging him, okay? But his messaging, I mean, you get beat up on social media a lot. Look, I expect Bitcoin to get traded in the 50s. That's going to happen, man. You know why? Because you got a bunch of idiots trading leverage on the greatest asset in the world, and we have real professional traders getting ready to come in here, and they're going to spank them into left field, and they're going to get blown out, and this is the greatest opportunity in a lifetime. So that's why we're going to have these swings, not because Bitcoin's inferior in any way. It's because the investment thesis right now is a little crazy.
All right. Well, it's interesting that you're agreeing with Gareth that we will see a short-term pullback. Again, I know that both of you, very long-term, are very bullish on Bitcoin. And I want to get into this going to war comment because you made that statement last time that you were on. You said you anticipated a black swan event, something big happening in 2024. And Gareth, I know you feel the same way. I mean, you have the nickname Bareth because you're a perma bear. And I know you're prepared, but I saw you nodding in agreement when Gary was saying that.
Yeah,
so,
the world is a very scary place right now. It's a world that's very quickly changing with AI, where you have wars going on that are being fought way differently than any past wars before, with drones now hovering over you and shooting at you. I mean, it is a far different situation, and I do worry that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
It has to get worse because there's no one bringing any remedies to the table. None. There are no real remedies showing up. There's no leaders showing up going, we must stop killing people. Until we get that moment, like, we're going to keep doing this. This is what these people do. It's really sad. And Americans need to start, like people are asking me, hey, why are you voicing this? Why did Kitco get such a response from that? I think people want to hear the truth. And media has completely lost their way in exposing what's happening behind the curtain to Joe Domestic. And I think that's what media was there for. And that's why I'm doing some of this stuff. And if I get sanctioned or embargoed or told to leave the country or thrown in jail, I get like, okay, but freedom is not free. We have to start communicating about the problems here.
Have to fight to maintain our freedom, and this is what we want. We want authentic voices giving their real and genuine opinions, because that is what the United States of America is supposed to be. And one of the comments that you made last time, Gary, that got you tremendous attention was that you said you believe that the US presidential election would be derailed, that it would not happen as previous elections have happened in terms of developments on that front? We now know that Nikki Haley has pulled out. President Trump looks to be the set frontrunner on the Republican side. We're still led to believe that Joe Biden will be representing the Democrats. At least that's how it's being presented. How are you seeing the developments on the election front? Do you still think that there's going to be some kind of disruption or some kind of extraordinary event that makes this election dramatically different from other elections?
Oh, most certainly this will be an election like no other election. If media represent, and there's no censorship, it will be an election like no other election. And all elections after this will be different. That's what I believe. I am not convinced we will have an election because of that. Because of the very fact that how bizarre this is getting ready to be. I think we're at civil war in the United States right this moment. The only difference is there's no muskets and there's no dead bodies. The dead bodies are other people in other countries, and we're supplying the weapons and the money. That's why if I ever was interested in politics, one of the first things would be if we ever set foot on another country or place a weapon there and kill people, it's going to be our own people. And then the moms, the dads, they'll be like, no, dude, we're not doing that. I'm not paying my taxes for this war. My kids are not going there. But because it's other people, it's like watching a movie. And guess what? We don't even get to see the movie anymore.
Well,
We've been censored on the truth of what's actually happening. I don't want to kill 3-year-old kids, okay? I do not want to kill 30-year-old kids or 90-year-old people. It's totally unnecessary.
Well, it's already an election. That's different by virtue of the fact that, they try to kick President Trump off the ballot. The Supreme Court overruled that.
If I would have told you that 4 years ago, you'd been like, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah. You're crazy, Gary. The Colorado tried it not once but twice. Then Maine went and did it. I mean, I am so impressed with the Supreme Court right now.
And it was a unanimous decision.
I am
which
so
speaks
impressed.
Volumes.
Even with some of the Ripple case, the SEC, Bitcoin, this whole thing, the Supreme Court has done. Like, it makes me have faith in America, really. And I mean, I say that with great genuineness. Like, oh, wow, that, because we were talking about war, man. Bitcoin has no point in the discussion, really. Like, this is a big deal. He's got kids. I've got children. I don't want to live in a Mad Max world, okay? And it's getting more and more and more and more Mad Max by the moment, by the series. It's almost like every episode gets a little weirder. So,
well, Bitcoin and gold do have a role in this discussion as safe havens if things do spiral and as counters to debasement and devaluation of fiat currency. And we will definitely steer back to gold and Bitcoin. But now that we've touched on this election front, which is a huge statement, as we said, being kicked off the ballots, but the Supreme Court overturned it, we still have what many would say is tremendous weaponization of the justice system against a political opponent that we haven't seen in this country before. And Gareth, I saw you nodding in agreement when Gary was saying that he does not expect this election to be anything like previous elections.
No, there's no doubt that there's going to be violence involved. In my opinion, there's going to be more social media, probably interaction from other countries. I mean, Russia laid the groundwork, and so many countries have been doing this. Heck, the U.S. has been doing it for ages, right? So let's be fair and call the U.S. out on that too. So it's going to be even more detrimental to the country as a whole. And it's sad to see, honestly. There used to be a time when people got along regardless of political views. That's not the case anymore. Yeah. I was just hearing the stats about if Democrats and Republicans, like, they won't date the other side. Like, and really, I understand that to some extent, but at the same time, I honestly blame a lot on the media and social media. I think there's been this polarization that has created this hate when really humans are very much the same. Like, when we go out, if you didn't know who the other person was, you'd be having a beer and having a great time. And then if you found out later on, you'd be like, dude, who cares? Like, all right, you have your views, I have my views. And generally, I honestly believe that a majority of the country is kind of like middle ground. And it's been hijacked on multiple sides by crazy sides that there might be some truth, but a lot of it is just creating this fear. And division is how other players get victory, right? I mean, that's how you divide and conquer, right? Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it's like everyone's sitting at this table, whatever our much are. I know you're an amazing person. I know you're an amazing person, and that should never change, no matter if we go lean one way or the other, frankly.
Well,
Yeah, I have no, I want you to go vote. You want to vote for Biden? Vote for him, man. I mean, I'm cool, but vote.
Right.
Bring everybody with you, too.
I mean, and that's what the American system is supposed to allow us to do, and that's what the Supreme Court ruled, that it's up to the people to decide. But there's no doubt about it, we're in a very politically divisive and toxic environment, more so than ever before. I have to go back to the statement, Gary, because someone, again, like you, saying that you don't think the election is going to happen or will be derailed. Can you elaborate on that? Beyond what I understand is a hunch, is a feeling based on the
when I was on your show, I said, look, the most easiest way to do it would be a cyber attack. And then what? We've had 3 or 4 cyber attacks. I mean, we've had 3 or 4 incidents. AT&T, T-Mobile.
Right.
Notice that you.
And those are the ones we know about.
Notice you never
and then
get
there was
any
Meta
data on it.
apps that were offline
yesterday
for a bit.
10 hours, right?
Yeah.
Meta's down.
I mean,
So, come on, man. Like, we're not being told what's happening, okay? There is an absolute war going on. So any public company that said we were out for 12 hours and doesn't report, why? Hello? This is a public company. What's the reason here you were out? Come on, this is not rocket science. But we've gone, man, we're not asking enough questions. We're so re-stimulated over all the social media stuff or what we're watching or what we're not watching.
That's what drives me nuts, is that people get hung up on these small factors that are made into such bigger deals. And then that's my fear, is that there's so much more going on behind the scenes, and we're sitting here arguing about these little things.
Arguing over nothing.
Yeah. And I think it's what they want. That's exactly what they want.
Totally. Divide and conquer is the deal. Polarize, okay? That it's better. Hey, we're all polarized. It's actually worse because we're being stimulated to be. We're not just divide. The division and the conquer is, okay, let's stimulate these people so they're so aggressive and angry, and then throw fear. How does fear show up? Not enough money to buy milk for your children. And then you feel ashamed because you're a man, you're supposed to do it, and you're like, I cannot tell you how many people that make $120,000 a year going, hey man, I just feel like I'm running against a treadmill.
yeah.
All I'm doing is I can't get off. I know that feeling, okay? The only way to get off is to get off the damn treadmill that has been established for us. And you guys are getting buried. Everyone should get angry, but you shouldn't get angry at me. Shouldn't get angry at him. You should we should figure out what can we agree on. Mm-hmm. It is so much easier.
Right.
For you and I to disagree.
And you're right about that. It's become, what do we disagree on versus what do we all agree on, and let's find that path. And that's the issue, right?
Yeah, like I know you believe in Bitcoin, but you're going to short the shit out of it when you think it's overpriced. It doesn't bother me.
That it pulls back,
that creates a good market. Yeah. Now I think long term, my correction would be long term. You haven't loaded up enough long term because I think it's such a spectacular trade. But that's cool. Like, he gets to do what he wants to do with his money, man.
Well, let's bring it back then.
At least today. Maybe next election, who knows?
Go.
Let's bring it back to gold and Bitcoin then, because Gareth, one of the points that you made as we're seeing gold hit new all-time highs is that it's been driven by central banks.
Yeah.
That central banks have been buying gold at record levels in 2022, 2023, and based on the latest data from the World Gold Council, that trend is continuing into 2024. And as you like to say, this is the smartest money because this is
They
the group that's making the money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've been bullish for the last 6 to 12 months on gold, and it hasn't broken out until now, but it's just watching the data come through and trying to see through all this craziness that's been going on in the media and being like, wait a minute, that's the distraction, what's really going on under the base, and that's it. The people that have their finger on the money printer are buying gold. And like, why are they doing that? Think about the ultimate run of, they know what's going to happen. The economy is going to tank. They're going to have to print more. It's going to create more inflation, and they want to back themselves and back what they can with physical gold, silver, rare earths, and eventually Bitcoin. I think there's, and it's even arguably the government, you probably know more about this, but the government may be one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin right now. from all they've seized, right? From Silk Road going all the way back.
I don't think consciously, but I tell you what, I'll make a prediction because I think you're absolutely correct. I don't think it's the smartest money, but it is the most sticky money because it doesn't matter for them, right? I'm going to make a prediction. I've never said this to anyone before, so I'll do it on your show.
I love
y'all show. Your show.
Our show.
Yeah,
We're all in this
y'all
together,
show.
Gary.
That this year we will have an announcement that a sovereign has already not only put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but they are continuing to buy just like they are with gold. Because if they're continuing to do this on gold, they're actually looking at the same charts that I looked at out there and go, hey, these are war charts, man. These are absolute war charts, possible depression charts. And I'm a gold buyer, I'm a silver buyer, and I'm going to buy Bitcoin till it makes me bleed. And I think you're going to have a couple of countries, okay? Like, who would be good? Turkey? Turkey is in an absolute great position to be a Bitcoin buyer. Russia's already doing it. Third largest miner. That's already happening. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Aramco. I mean, Aramco is a country, right? So, I mean, this is a game changer here because they have a new option that I don't think. And where else can they deploy if we're going to war?
Well, it's very interesting that you say this because we just heard from renowned whistleblower, love him or hate him, Edward Snowden, but he has the access to information and he has come out and said that his prediction, a national government will be revealed this year to have been buying Bitcoin, the modern replacement for monetary gold, without having disclosed that fact publicly. That's from Edward Snowden today.
When did he say that?
Today. Literally today.
Interesting.
So you and him are...
And to be fair, there's a reason why. Like, there's no country that's going to reveal it ahead of them buying because it's going to drive.
Well,
the
we
price
know El
up.
Salvador. El Salvador's revealed it. And in fact, that trade has worked out pretty well for Bukele.
Right.
Is what he actually came out and said that he hasn't gotten credit for how well his trade is doing, but he always gets criticism when it's not doing well. But back to this idea that you
Welcome
think...
to my world.
Welcome to the world, man. That's the way it always works.
You get criticized when you're down, but don't get credit when you're making the right move, right? Yeah, I guess. But back to this idea that central banks are buying Bitcoin. You think, well, we know China and Turkey are leaders in buying gold, right? We know that. You think that those are the most likely candidates? China, Turkey, Russia, Saudi
If I
Arabia?
was working in the Treasury Department, I would knock on Mnuchin's door or whoever's door every day till they fired me and suggest one agenda.
I think Yellen, Mnuchin's out the picture.
Print and buy Bitcoin. Print and buy gold. Print and buy silver. When you can print something for nothing and go buy a rare commodity, why wouldn't you? Like, it's a no-brainer. So America won't do it. They'll do it later, and they won't do it consciously, but there'll be other countries. There's 186 countries. You only need 10 small ones to do it.
Well, the U.S. is actually one of the largest holders of Bitcoin by virtue of the fact that it's
they
confiscated.
didn't do it consciously, though.
Yeah.
They didn't buy Bitcoin as a treasury
No,
play.
but still has it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But still has it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting that they still have it, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they bought it and dumped it right away. They're holding on to it. And I think that speaks for itself in a way.
So Gary Cadone agrees with Ed Snowden that we will have it be revealed that a central bank of a national government, other than El Salvador, has been buying Bitcoin secretly.
I think you'll say sovereign countries doing it, and then you'll see large. They're so big, they are effectively countries. They're bigger than El Salvador.
What do you think, Gareth?
Oh, my goodness. I would not be surprised. I do agree. I think, again, whether or not it happens this year, it's going in that direction. But certainly I don't have any inside information on that. And I just stick to my charts. You know me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, but look, let me give you an example. I mean, if I'd have told you 3 months ago that Stanford would have put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, you'd have probably, that's probably going to happen sooner or later. 7%. You see that?
Well, I will say this. I do wonder if at some point Bitcoin becomes too powerful where it does become an enemy to some of these countries. Like, again, is Bitcoin a backdoor to CBDC, or is there going to be a CBDC that's already being rolled out by the U.S. government? Or, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this too. But at some point, if too many other people own Bitcoin, does it become a threat? And that's the bigger question too.
See, I don't think that holds zero concern for me. The country that would be the most upset would be ours. Mm-hmm. But when you see Stanford University, allocating not 1, not 0.7, $7 of their endowment to Bitcoin, what are they going to do? They're going to go to Stanford and say, we're taking all that back? This is getting ready to get so big that you're going to have institutions involved. And I just don't think the Americas can control this at this point, not with only 12 or 13%.
Gary, are you comfortable saying that you no longer see government regulation as an existential threat to Bitcoin?
I've never said that Bitcoin ever had any governmental extinction threat against it. I think the wallet business has a massive problem now, and that they'll try to choke off the wallets and self-ownership and self-custody and self-carry as much as I want. I mean, quite frankly, if I was running a country, like, oh wow, you're just going to walk in here with $1 billion on a USB port in your head, like, really? Or are you going to take it? Ooh, like, you don't really want money flowing out of countries like that just without even knowing that size money. So I mean, I don't think I don't think any government can control this now unless they concertedly acted together.
And is that something that you think is still on a risk horizon or not?
I think the G7s are going to just agree to, hey, clip the wallets, man. Nobody can carry their own wallets.
Well, how can you do that? I mean, is that even technologically feasible? You have it in your, you got your seed phrase in your head, right?
Yeah, but how can you carry a illegal submachine gun part in your home? You just break the law.
No, I meant how
you go to federal prison if they catch you.
How would governments even be able to regulate something
Well, I mean, regulating is a different story, but how they regulate people with guns, I mean, that's my point. It's so many people to regulate. But just because someone can do it, if it's on the legal system, I mean, they can start asking questions like, hey, we think you're holding. But it would be the way I would do it. I would just say we're not allowing self-custody over $10,000. They can just tweak the rules. France, EU, they don't even need France's opinion. They just go to the EU. Those 5 guys, we don't know who runs the EU. Those guys agree with somebody in the US, and then they go to Switzerland, and like, it would be this is a club. Hey, we don't like all these guys having this much power and money. We have billionaires walking around right now that can buy whole companies. Elon's probably woken up a lot of sovereigns going, oh my God, man, he could just go buy a country or a military. So
potential regulation of how much an individual can self-custody in Bitcoin is what you think could be on the horizon.
I think that they're going to attack weak points in the Bitcoin vertical, or that whole value chain, and it just seems to me that self-custody, I think the big loser from the ETF is the wallet guys. Not self-custody necessarily, but just the wallet, the idea of everything's on the wallet, right? Because I think big money's not going to care about the wallet, because then they have to confront that 85% of their other investments are all going to zero because the entire American economy is going to go to zero. I don't believe that.
Well, you know, Gary brings up an interesting point, and one that people have highlighted as a potential conspiracy here, that the idea of the Bitcoin ETFs takes away from the decentralized mission of Bitcoin, that it's people aren't self-custodying. It's a lot easier to buy a share in an ETF, and that's not really what Bitcoin was designed to be, as a medium of exchange between individuals, and that it's bringing Bitcoin back into the traditional financial system that it was supposed to be an alternative of. And the conspiracy angle is that it's by design that these big institutions like the BlackRocks have gotten involved in this game. Many would consider BlackRock an agent of the government, considering it's so powerful, largest asset manager in the world. What do you think about that?
So a couple things. Number one is I would be concerned, and this is, again, I'm no expert in crypto in that respect, but what do we have in terms of, so first of all, the investment side, I really think BlackRock is driven mostly by profit, right? And I think a lot of these firms are like, I mean, listen, Larry Fink he was against crypto, and then all of a sudden he woke up, let's launch an ETF, we can make billions of dollars off of it. All right, now I'm a fan, right? I mean, so there's this driving force of profitability that's driving them. But you do have that other side, which is, these spot ETFs now can be more controlled. But I would also say, isn't the blockchain open anyways? Like you're on the blockchain, they can find out who who's holding it anyways.
Exactly.
So again, my bigger concern is if we go towards this direction away from cash, and let's be fair, that's where the society is going, whether it's credit cards, debit cards, or Bitcoin or crypto, it's moving away from cash. Are we going to a point where, are you concerned, Gary, about the trackability of every asset that you have? Like, are the days, like, I mean, when I have a piece of physical gold, yes, I did have to buy that somewhere, but, it gets passed down generation to generation. Eventually, maybe it gets kind of put away versus crypto. There's an address there and you can go right to it. I mean, what about, let's say the U.S. government or a different country saying, all right, we're going to ban all exchanges that you can have your Bitcoin on. Now, again, I do know there's ways to transfer Bitcoin without that, but it certainly makes it a lot harder.
Oh my God.
So, I think that people need to realize that Bitcoin doesn't solve all the problems. In fact, there are still some major concerns out there. It's certainly, I view it as a digital gold, and I hope that it progresses. I think the more politicians adopt it, the better it is. The more countries adopt it, the better it is, assuming it'll become that digital gold. But there are still risks out there that people have to be aware of.
Well, Gary, you're an expert in financial payments. This is how you made much of your fortune with electronic digital payments. Correct me if I'm wrong. So Gareth is highlighting an important point, which links to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but of course back to the evil central bank digital currency, which for our viewers that don't know is a form of fiat that would be issued by a country's central bank. It would be on a blockchain, allowing the government to monitor every single transaction, obliterating any kind of freedom and anonymity and privacy, and allowing them to program the currency, meaning that the government can decide when your money does or doesn't work. So if it deems that an item is not essential, your money doesn't work to purchase that particular item. A central bank digital currency would also allow the fine-tuning of monetary policy. In theory, you could suck out money out of the economy with a click of a button and inject money back into the economy with a click of a button. And the concern is that it would be woven into this potential sort of climate change narrative. So, you've flown your jet, you've exceeded your carbon allowance. I've taken 10 flights this month. I've exceeded my carbon allowance.
Shame.
I've eaten too much meat. We've eaten too much steak lately, Gareth. So my money doesn't work to purchase a flight ticket, or doesn't work to purchase another nice piece of steak, or it does, but with a premium. So obviously central bank digital currencies, I know that's a huge concern that Gareth and I share. We've heard from the Republicans, they've been pushing against it, at least in the US, and President Trump has been campaigning saying that there won't be a CBDC under his watch, but it depends on what kind of form and shape it will take. But as someone that has tremendous background in the disruptive technology of financial payments, as a leader in that field, what are your thoughts? Will we get a CBDC? Is it inevitable?
We'll get a CBDC. We'll get 108 of them. That's the good news. Got 108 countries competing with each other, and they'll teach everybody how to use digital assets, even though the truth is we are already digitized. I'm the only guy with cash in my pocket.
I carry cash.
Good for you, because cash is king when you're in a bind, okay?
Right.
Bitcoin doesn't do anything. I've literally tested this at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to get a cab. And your Bitcoin gets you nowhere. The credit card gets you nowhere, but $1,000 being waved at somebody, dude, the guy pulls over immediately. So look, I don't get this worried about this whole, we are digitizing planet Earth. Okay, you don't digitize planet Earth and then not be able to calibrate it, measure it, track it, trace it. It's happening. This is technology, okay? Like, I don't do anything that I'm worried about being traced and tracked on. Now, I'm going to be irritated when, as soon as I go over 70 miles an hour in my Range Rover, I get a ticket, like the old Jetsons. Ticket, $10, right? But, you could build a case that'd be better than getting stopped by a cop and being harassed and, wasting 15 minutes.
You're not concerned, Gary, that if someone doesn't like your political position, you
Most
could be
people
taken
don't.
off the
There's
system.
a lot of people who don't like my politics. I've already been done.
If we look at the truckers in Canada, right? I bring up that example because that was a concrete example of it being implemented. They were against the vaccine, and the Trudeau administration decided that they were not allowed to voice that opinion via protest, and issued an emergency act to take them off the financial system and anybody that was trying to donate to them. With a central bank digital currency, click, and it's easier done. And more importantly, it deters
I think they can already
people.
do it to you, though.
But it scares people more if they know that it's so much easier to just take you off the system. So you're thinking, oh, I want to express this view, but I'm too scared to be canceled off the financial system. So, I won't. I mean, we've seen that even happen to other political figures,
Well, it's happening in China already.
Well, with a social credit
Right.
system,
That's what
you've
I'm
got your
saying.
CBDC linked to a social credit system.
Right, absolutely. So in China, you do something they don't like, you're paying more for your mortgages. They basically have that rating system now. And again, I ultimately think it's not a matter of, are you used to doing something, you might not do anything illegal today, but what if someone else gets in power? What if things go in a crazier route and you're like, listen, I have to stand up for this. And all of a sudden you pay that price at that point. I think that's the bigger concern.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not condoning it. I just think this is where we're headed now. The question is going to be who's monitoring and who's writing the rules. This is why I think we have to get to war, because it's clear to me that until people's rights are removed from them, only then will they actually take action.
So when you say war, do you mean a civil war?
I mean people fighting and saying, I'm not doing this anymore. No. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, hey, what is the best definition of freedom? Because I think we're selling this wrong on Bitcoin. Bitcoin, for me, offers me true freedom. It's like, freedom to me is the more money I have, assuming I'm psychologically balanced, literally, the more money I have, the more freedom I can buy. And I had to fight for that. Like, I had to fight and work my whole life for that, and I ain't gonna lay down and let somebody take it from me. The question is, are the other people gonna stand up and fight? We have people in prison right now for January the 6th. I'm not sure they really deserve to be there. Those people are heroes. They're suffering. America's a long way away from ever suffering about the freedom we have. We have more freedom than any human being on the planet, and we don't fight very hard for it. So I think my children are going to get pressed to fight, or they're going to lay down like sheep and be robots. I will never be a part of that system that you're talking about. I will always have a way to be free, and that is what Bitcoin's so awesome about. These credit cards, they can get snapped so quickly.
Keep in mind, what you're talking about never being under that system is exactly what we're talking about with the CBDC, where they now say, well, you know what, because you're doing this, and now we don't like that, we're going to shut down your credit cards, your Bitcoin account, all that type of stuff. And again, I think that's the big concern of how do you fight against that? How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, this is the real value of self-custody. This is why, people think I'm talking bad about self-custody. I'm not. But I'm not keeping $180 million on a seed phrase, okay? I don't keep $180 million in a bank either, right? You move things around. So if I have 100 Bitcoin sitting on a wallet and this thing goes to shit, well, I still have the ability. I mean, that's why I'm making all these connections with all these people. I can do a peer-to-peer transaction with Tony Vase. I'll figure out where he is. I mean, there's a lot. That's why the price is so important. Price is so important here, and the speed of price. If we can get this thing to $500,000 to $1 million, everyone will be in this game, and then it's unstoppable. Because even the senators that want to stop it, they'll be making so much money from it. They're like, hey, this is a great game.
So you're seeing, as many are, Bitcoin and gold as a way to opt out of a system if it becomes too oppressive and too controlling via CBDC or other ways. And you're thinking that 500,000 Bitcoin helps that adoption process dramatically. Do you have a timeline for when you see Bitcoin at $500,000?
That's a tough question, man. I think we see 100 by the end of the year. Could we see 500? I would hope not by the end of the year. That would be a little weird. Look, I think it eats up Google, NVIDIA. I'm going to go back to this. We get to a $2 trillion market cap, and then we get to decide what's going to happen next. And eventually it will eat up. The higher gold goes, by the way, okay? The higher gold goes, I think you'll see a differential between people will start selling gold at big numbers, and then they will not buy gold back in. They will buy Bitcoin.
Something tells me you disagree with that, Gareth.
I think at least in the near term, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm not talking.
In the near term, the breakout on gold, and again, gold is one of the most underinvested assets with retail investors right now. They've obviously moved towards Bitcoin in a dramatic fashion, as have portfolios across the board. And so I do think that the breakout, the more publicized you get this breakout on gold, more money will flow into gold in the near term. Long term, we're on the same page here.
When they go to exit, I'm saying they're not going to exit. They're not going to stay in gold. They're going to exit.
Right. And I hold a fair amount of physical gold. I'm a big person on physical gold because of stuff we've talked about, right? If I wake up one morning, the grid is down, like there's been a cyber attack and my credit cards don't work and I have the cash on me, but maybe it doesn't cover the things that I need for my family for an extended period of time, I do have that physical gold, and that will be, and it's been for thousands of years, it's a denomination of value that I can trade. It's, barter system, use it to buy things. And so I think, again, a diversified portfolio with Bitcoin, but you also have to plan for the unexpected. We've talked about this last night, right? I have solar panels on my roof. I have battery backups in my house. I have a well drilled on my property. I've done almost everything I can, not because I think for sure something crazy is going to happen, but because my job as a trader is to analyze risk and try to offset risk. And so we have to be in that position. And I think most Americans have to start thinking like that. You just can't think like everything's going to be hunky-dory forever. There's going to be a point. I mean, we're coming up on the 100-year cycle of the Great Depression. You have to be ready for the unexpected.
Well, Gary, you predicting a potential cyber attack, and we chatted about this last time. Bitcoin doesn't work in that environment.
Yeah. It doesn't.
So I know you told me that you were selling your silver just the other day. Why would you sell your silver if you're thinking that a cyber attack could happen?
Well, I think for I'm a gold, silver holder, physical product. I don't need as much as I have. I have another option. I have Bitcoin. I never had that before. I had 23,700 ounces I'm getting ready to sell. And it's been such a pain in the ass to sell it. Every day I delay, I make another 50 cents. Right? Bad. Now, I think silver's going to explode. I actually like silver more than gold, but I'm not really a charter. There's something about silver. I'm like, this thing's going to rip, man. It's going to just, this is a super altcoin. If you like altcoins, you should be buying silver. At least it's physical and it ain't going to go away. Yeah. Right? There's no rug pulls on that. But, I don't necessarily need as much as I have. Moving it around 23,000 ounces is a lot of work.
But still very much into physical gold and silver.
By the way, and cash. Okay. I just picked up $100,000 of cash at the bank. I believe in cash. And U.S. dollar will be the longest surviving currency. Well, it could really do well out of the world I'm thinking about. It could actually do very well.
So you don't go into the idea that, again, eventually the Fed just prints us to oblivion, the government.
Oh no, they're most certainly going to do that.
Okay. Well, that brings up another conversation.
Right? But they can do it a long time.
Yeah.
I think we don't really understand what infinite means and how long they can play monopoly money, man.
So you're not concerned about the sort of 10-year demise of the U.S. dollar as we're seeing the bifurcation.
No chance this happens in 10 years.
We're seeing the bifurcation of the global monetary system. We know the BRICS are expanding. We know that they want to launch a common currency potentially backed by commodities. We heard from the Russians that they're looking at putting this currency on a blockchain just this week to compete against the dollar. We've had a de-dollarization trend with countries trading with their own currencies, actively shunning the dollar, not putting their reserve assets into dollars, as we discussed, buying gold, and as we've just said, potentially buying Bitcoin. But yet, you are still optimistic about the longevity of the U.S. dollar as the king of global reserve currencies?
I think it's the best con job in a long list of bad con jobs.
I agree with that.
The euro is going to implode first, okay? The Aussie dollar, this is very important that Bitcoin's hitting all-time highs in 8 countries now, 8 different currencies. It should not be looked at, right?
Well, and I think you're right about that. It is the best house on a bad block, obviously. But having said that, we know that if you look at what the dollar bought you 100 years ago and 10 years ago, it obviously buys you a lot less now. And I think the idea is that for a pinch, there's nothing like having cash. Smart move because, again, your credit cards don't work. Cash is still there, as well as gold, silver, and all that stuff. But if you're looking at okay, what do I leave my kids in 100 years or 50 years? the what you can probably buy with that money is going to be a lot less.
Oh, you could buy some food and it'd be worth more than the dollar in 100
That's
years.
my closing question, Gareth. Don't go there yet. Though. We're going to get to both of your kids and your legacies. But before we get that, let's talk about the dollar's legacy. So 10 years' time, we've had guests come on the show and predict that the dollar starts to get dethroned in 10 years' time. What's your timeline?
We'll have a global war before 10 years and establish what currency is or is not working.
You mean fit like
I'm talking about a depression type event. Look, you just said it, dude.
Yeah,
you just said it. Hey, we're 100 years away.
Wait, so
we have nobody that remembers any of this stuff. We have gotten lazy. We have not held our politicians accountable.
That's right.
Not at all. We have been complicit in this bastardization of the Constitution. We have been complicit. I keep paying my taxes. I keep doing things that I know are wrong. The money's going to wrong places. I would never invest money with Raytheon, ever. Okay, I don't do funds because I'm like, hey, I want to know who I'm investing with. I don't want to support evilness. I don't want to support death. And we have not, 300 million people have not done enough to say, hey, we want our freedom, we want our rights. And that's why I think Bitcoin, just this whole thing is an opportunity to escape this vortex of like insanity. It's really insanity.
But back to this war that you're warning us about. So you think that there'll be a global war, World War III, in order for the U.S. to maintain the dollar's supremacy? Is that what I'm understanding you're saying?
Well, I think most of the wars we've had since Vietnam have been about protecting the U.S. dollar.
But
I just wonder if we have a literal World War III, I can't imagine it not involving nukes at some point. And that's the question is, are we still all here then at that point?
Well, but the path we're on has only one trajectory. It's not like oh, wow, there's a stop sign up there. Like this thing always escalates. And that's why it's really concerning to me. We're not getting news of what's actually going on. I want to know how many people were killed in the Ukraine. I want to know how many people are dying in Israel. Like facts, videos, cameras, pictures. Like stop censoring this. I can't make a good decision unless I have all the data, and I have none of the data. That's why I don't listen to any of it. I'm like, hell, man, just keep buying, just keep storing stuff, buy some guns, buy some ammo, do the water wells. Like, this is insane. You're in Florida. You can fish forever. Like I'm a man. I have an obligation to my whole crew, my family, my neighborhood, to provide for them.
I wish more men had that alpha male protecting.
Well, if they did, we wouldn't be here. Okay, like 20 years ago, we just don't stand up anymore.
Well, I applaud you for taking the strong male position of providing and protecting for your family. And I understand that you're speculating, and obviously you can't pinpoint it, but you're sensing that there is something negative on the horizon. With regards to geopolitical developments, you're talking about nuclear weapons. We have learned that apparently space could be the next frontier in terms of an impending battle. Apparently the Russians have developed a space weapon which is intended to attack U.S. satellites, which are so vital to our infrastructure, right? I mean, everything from all that electronic banking that we're talking about to Bitcoin, to GPS, to cell phones, to the missile systems that the military uses, right, all linked to satellites. And we're learning that, according to the White House at least, and some would say this is a false flag, a red flag, but the message that we're getting is that the Russians have been developing a weapon that is intended to attack U.S. satellites, would have a crippling impact here on planet Earth without having to go the nuclear route.
Right. Yeah. And it's happening. And I think AI is going to be, I think AI is one of the most amazing things that we will experience, but I also think it's one of the most scary. I think the fact that there's going to be good actors, and then there's always bad actors in the world, right? And there's ways to use AI in very negative ways that are going to potentially create wars, start wars, end wars, all that kind of stuff. And again, it will happen, and it's a new world that we are living in, like you said, with the satellites. I think it's to see what's going on in Ukraine is horrendous. It's also extremely scary that you go in a couple hundred years from lighting up in a battlefield with a gun across a field to now a satellite shooting you. You don't even see anything coming anymore, or a bomb being dropped, or a drone hovering over you. I mean, it is a whole new world, kind of like the Terminator movies, right? I mean,
there's more drone operators than there are pilots.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the new frontier, So, I mean, again, I don't think we want to necessarily be fear mongers.
Right.
I think we have to live our lives, and I think,
No, I never, that's really important, okay?
Yeah.
To me, living that way is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to live in a, I've left a lot of money on the table being worried.
Yeah.
These people can print for a long time.
They can.
$34 trillion worth of debt.
Yeah.
And we're learning from a report from Bank of America, U.S. national debt rising by $1 trillion every 100 days.
Yep.
I mean, that is a fact that is out there. And we're hearing from, all the politicians that a soft landing is expected. Fed Chair Jerome Powell making that comment again today, that it is achievable, that inflation is seemingly under control, although they're still watching it before they're making any moves with rate cuts. But either way, when you look at this $34 trillion of debt, I mean, Gary, that's got to concern you. It's concerning the likes of Jerome Powell, so much so that he has spoken out against politicians printing, and that's very rare for the Federal Reserve to make any kind of comment like that. We know Ray Dalio, Jamie Dimon, they're all warning that this inflection point is coming, right? So is this, again, back to gold and Bitcoin, how you hedge with that $34 trillion of debt that's growing every 100 days?
How do I hedge? Well, I think Bitcoin's probably the premier hedge, actually. Long term. Now, you got to remember the long term. Like that, he and I doing this stuff. It's actually good because, I don't disagree that short term it's going to get pounced. Could go up 30 grand too. Could go back down.
Absolutely.
In order for it to stay at the 70% vols, it has to move hard. 250, we're going to see 70% retraces. That's what the world I want to see, because I'll sell up there and then I'll just wait when I see that extreme number. But how do I hedge against this? I vote. I don't know. I mean, I'm not living scared because I'm prepared. But we're in a cycle that unless you stop, if you think about this like a junkie, like a heroin addict, if you've ever known real severe addiction, this is like taking a morphine needle in a hospital and going, hey, look, dude, we got 100 liters of morphine over there, and we're just going to trust you that you're not going to do the plunger. You're going to have to dry out, right? Well, you would never leave that morphine with him because he's going to plunge. Yeah. And they will plunge until they die unless you remove the morphine. The U.S. government can't remove the morphine. They can't. It'll be catastrophic. So they keep doing it.
But eventually you kill the patient, let's be fair.
Sooner or later, the patient's going to die.
Yeah.
Or they go into full recovery. I don't think there's any politicians, including Trump, that are willing to pay the maker.
No, I agree with you.
Okay, Trump's going to produce money. He's going to do M2 on steroids.
We talked about this yesterday in the interview, is that there's two ways. There's you continue to print and you can push off whatever is going to come for maybe a few more years or a decade, or you go to austerity and get the debt under control. And then you know what happens to the U.S. economy? We go into, you thought 2008, 2009 was bad. No, we start paying down that debt and we shut off the printing presses. It gets real bad. And then you have even more unrest, with the politicians obviously don't want. So there's no good outcome here. But at the same time, like you said, being prepared, Bitcoin diversification, gold, silver, and obviously just continue to work hard. I think working hard.
Produce new income. Yeah. But just one thing I disagree with you. This is the first time I disagree with you tonight.
Please disagree. Yes. We want dissent.
And that was the thing on the printing. I think everybody wants them to print. Okay, there is no solving the $34 trillion. Like you say, hey, if we do it down, you cannot solve that problem.
Not without extreme.
No, you can't solve it. Oh, without extreme. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
I don't think the
billionaires 50%.
That doesn't solve it. There is no solution to this problem, and you have to start over. Right, and that would be like a world currency. Okay, but I think that comes after a war, because whoever's got the strongest amount of guns and energy, kinetic energy, they're going to go, well, let's go grab a bunch of resources. Like Mexico's just sitting there. Canada's up there. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, the whole country status. By the way, Russia just grabbed, a whole country. And it's surprising to anyone. It's like, seriously, we should never have been at that war. To expect a man not to want to have a warm water port and some resources, and then you go blow two pipes up on him. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. We are already at war. When was the last time a terror act that large happened? Imagine if someone would have blown up Canadian pipes coming into the United States of America. We would have been throwing nukes around, okay? 2 massive pipelines to Germany providing the cheapest energy in the world were blown up, and we still don't know who did it.
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
But see, that's the problem with the censorship. I keep getting back to censorship. We should be much more concerned about censorship than the M2.
Well, look, with regard to the Russia-Ukraine war, I mean, some would argue that Putin was antagonized into taking Ukraine because ever since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, every American administration has broken promises to expand westward, and that Putin said, Ukraine is my reddest of red lines. It cannot be a member of NATO. And the Biden administration really sped up the process of effectively green-lighting potential Ukraine membership into NATO. And Putin said, don't do this. I'm serious about this. I'm sending troops to the border. Biden administration did not want to take a diplomatic resolution to this. They wouldn't take it off the table. So again, not necessarily saying I'm in favor of Putin and his acts, but many could argue that he was in fact antagonized, poked into this position, and perhaps by design, to create a war.
There's only one way out of these charts. Either get religion and fess up to your sins, which won't happen, or go to war. So, like, those charts are horrible. I mean, you can't have the S&P at all-time highs. 7 stocks run the whole thing up. You got $2 trillion. You got $250 billion moves on public companies, and all the analysts missed it. They're bitching about your 1 week call. Like, dude, everybody's missing this. Okay, this is weird. Like to me, that was a monster miss. I'm like, how could everybody miss $250 billion in one day?
And it doesn't even move the needle anymore, considering what the entire market's worth now.
And then it's going to what, 200? Whatever. It's moved another 30%. So
look, we could have a war for a financial system reset. We could have a war to, maintain the dollar supremacy. There are a lot of question marks on what we could have here. I want to bring it a little bit back to the short term. You said you could see a correction in Bitcoin. Gareth, your theory on that hinges on the fact that when the NASDAQ starts to come down, that's when Bitcoin pulls. And of course, we know that the markets have been practically propped up by NVIDIA.
Yeah. At this point, it's the semis. That's it.
Magnificent Seven, the AI play, the semiconductors.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, that you have all the stocks today. In fact, you have everything of the Mag 7 except for NVIDIA and Meta were down today. Apple's gone into a hole now. It's collapsed from probably it's close to 20% off of its highs. And at this point, the markets are still going up because this one sector has the power. So I was looking at this, like if you go back a couple years, the entire semiconductor index or companies was worth about $500 billion. It's now worth over $6 trillion in 2 years, right? Massive, massive gains. And again, to me, I've traded a long time. I've seen many bubbles. And, while AI will change our lives, it's still a bubble. It still is. I mean, the internet was a bubble too, and the internet changed our lives. It's just the nature of momentum and greed that drives these things up. And so people, again, it doesn't mean that AI isn't going to survive and thrive. It will. You just have to have a washout at some point of the greed that's making things a little on the ridiculous side.
I know you're calling for a market correction, potentially even up to 50% from where we're at. Gary, what do you think? I know you're not big into equities necessarily, but do you think...
A market correction at 50?
Well, that would be only in the case of inflation stays elevated, which handcuffs the Fed from being able to lower rates as much as the market wants and print money again. Because if they do that with elevated inflation, right, that's what I'm saying. We've seen
lower rates because the market's working.
Right, and that's the thing too is they'll never lower rates with the markets at all-time highs, crypto at all-time highs. I mean, it's just that's actually inflationary to have these asset prices just keep going up and up because people see their 401k and say, wow, I can go out to dinner tonight. I can buy a new car. Heck yeah, let's do this. and then that creates a supply and demand off balance, which increases inflation. But yeah, I mean, it's if the Fed can't, and I loved your analogy of the morphine, because that's what I've said. The Fed has been to this market since really 2000. They've come out slowly, but every time they do more and more to basically stave off a natural occurrence. I mean, people have to understand the markets. The economy should be a gently rolling hill, slightly up. So you have expansions, you have contractions, and it's gentle. When you screw around with the way things naturally work, you create these long-term moves up that eventually have to collapse. And then you get situations like 08, 09. And what's even scarier, they've gone 100x on what they did after 08, 09 just since COVID, which is going to create even more pain. And this is where the 50% or more comes in when that happens, if that happens.
Yeah.
You see that as well? You think we're going to have a short-term big market correction?
When was the last time we had a 50% correction?
We have, 40 in the NASDAQ in 2022, which seems like a distant memory now.
Yeah. No, people forget pain.
Yeah, they do.
People forget pain a lot faster than do the pleasure.
And by the way, notice that you have things in crypto that were happening in 2021. Pepe, Doge.
Yes.
I mean, all of these running up. And people aren't saying, wow, I really think there's a fundamental factor to buying Pepe here. They're not thinking that. They're thinking, I want to get in and then I want to dump it to someone else for a 10x gain. There's no technical or fundamental reasons behind it. Once you get to those greed levels, and that's even happening in AI stocks, it's the mark of, and again, we don't know if it's this week, next month, but it's a mark of a top coming and a corrective move. Now, how big? We'll have to see. We'll have to see what the Fed does here.
Yeah. Well, corrections are good.
They are healthy.
Corrections are very good. I'm not a buyer of any of these stocks at these levels. I don't understand them. Could I be? I'm probably wrong. Okay, Tesla's probably going to be a super company, great, but I just don't understand the value. I can understand rare better than I can like this bank, community bank just now. Like,
NYCB.
Totally bankrupt bank, right? And they're, I think we're going to issue 1,000 preferred shares and raise $1.3 trillion or $1 billion, right? And save this is such an Enron, Arthur Anderson move. I mean, they're just cooking the books. It's just more pencil whipping. And it's all, the only tools they have is the ledger. Twist the model around, do a special SVP and change things and let the next guy deal with the problem. Trump's going to have a big problem. I mean, I would not want to be president of the United States in 2025.
You think Trump's going to, I mean, I know you said you're not even sure we're going to have an election or that there'll be some event that disrupts the normal course of elections. But if you had to bet your Bitcoin, who do you think is going to be president?
I'm making a bet on the sanctity of not going to war. That's core to me. See, I would rather pay 40% tax than go to war. I would rather pay for $400 crude oil and $15 gasoline. I think it would drive better behavior because I think everyone wastes way too much. In this country, we waste. That tells me price is too cheap. So without a military intervention, let the price go to $400. Everybody makes a tremendous amount of money. Canadians are making money. Iraq's making. We don't have to go to war. Just pay for what you use, and then we'll stop spending money to go down the street to buy 50 cents.
Do you care to make a political prediction? I need a headline here, Gareth.
Yeah, totally.
Gary,
I think Donald Trump's going to just smoke the entire thing. I think it's going to be a total major increase, repeat over the last time he was allowed to run, if we have an election. That's why I said we won't have an election. That's exactly why we won't have an election, because the guy's a shoo-in. Because people want to fix the economy now. They don't care about their Democrat or Republican. They care about the food on their plate, how much it costs them. They don't have good jobs.
Well, and that's one of the things I would say, too, is, you're talking about these asset prices going up substantially. That would be, think about the divergence of rich and poor. And if that happens, just think about the recent inflation we've seen. What is done. So if you see some of these prices, you're talking about like oil and gasoline going to these levels. Yeah. What do you do then? Because you have more and more people fitting into the lower 90%, and you have this top 10% tier. Yeah. They can afford it. Yeah, sure. You and I can afford, $400 whatever, but what about everyone else? Well, you can't tell me that that's not going to create a revolt in and of itself.
Yeah, but hang tight, okay? If you're in Germany right now, you're paying $11 for gasoline. Okay, like we're the only ones really enjoying this.
But Europe does have a better transportation system at least.
Oh, yeah. Well, guess what? Innovation shows up when they're like, man, I don't want to spend $11 to go get back cigarettes.
So what you're saying is just add an extra $5 trillion
no,
in debt, and then we'll be okay.
No, I think we're going to war under the auspice that we need to control the energy supply. And what I'm saying, we have so much energy on this planet, we are wasting it. You're not going to shut your computer tonight. You're going to leave it on. I just proved to you that electricity is priced incorrectly. Otherwise, you do not leave your car engine on in your car in your garage. You turn it off, you're like, that'd be stupid.
Right.
We do this every night. No one turns anything off.
I turn mine off, but that's because I like living off the grid with solar, and I want to conserve that solar, but that's a different situation.
Yeah, but see that behavior, you're just a more disciplined in the way you're looking at that. To me, you should get a tax relief. See, you should get tax relief because he is helping everything. He's not straining on the grid.
Gareth Soloway, helping everyone, helping everything.
Now this,
by the way,
you're going to overpay for.
Statement, I would gladly pay 50% in tax on the money I make if the money went to actual fiscal responsible things.
Cool.
Like I just want to say that too, is that I have no problem paying taxes and I should be taxed, and I would pay way more in taxes if it wasn't being wasted. And I think that's the sad thing about it, is there's so much waste in our system, and that's the killer.
I'm still hung up on the if we have an election line.
Yeah. Well,
what happens if we don't have an election? And what does that even mean? Biden administration stays what is
we're
it?
nowhere land. Well, who knows? We're going to find out how good our Constitution is and how good our Supreme Court is, which is happening right now.
Yeah.
We're literally being the whole
history in the making.
Challenge. It's uncomfortable. It's going to get probably a little more uncomfortable until it gets like in everybody's face. But I just think we have become really lazy. To his point, 40% of the world's population still cooks with wood. Really. Today, right now, while we're all sitting in this 70-degree weather, 40% of the entire world has to go to the river, pick up some water, and bring it back to the fire and burn it so that it's clean, and then they cook that way. $400 crude oil to them is not going to change that event. It doesn't. What they need to quit. They need infrastructure. I would like to see more Bitcoin go to those people in the early days.
And that is potentially, what many people say, the Michael Saylors of the world say that Bitcoin buys freedom for 8 billion people. It gives them sovereign rights. It allows them to have a future anywhere that they are in the world. Let's bring it back to Bitcoin as we're starting to wrap up here. Hal Finney predicted full Bitcoinization by 2045. Full Bitcoinization, things denominated in Bitcoin, Bitcoin being a global standard. What do you think, Gary?
20 years from now?
Yeah.
Or not?
Sooner? Later? Not at all.
Later. I mean, I don't even know why anyone would spend Bitcoin to buy stuff.
Well, things denominated in Bitcoin,
I do not think Bitcoin's going to be the only winner of providing a base layer of currency value or communication value, because that ain't currency to really communication. There'll be multiple areas and countries, and it'll probably be a blend of things. That would be the way I would do it.
So Bitcoin part of that basket, but not.
We're everything. Everyone, it's just a Bitcoin world. I don't believe that.
But part of that basket, Bitcoin, because as we said earlier, you think central banks are buying Bitcoin and it'll be part of the global infrastructure. What do you think, Gareth?
I'm in the position of thinking it's the digital gold. So I don't foresee people buying and selling anything in Bitcoin. I think we do get a CBDC.
But do you see it as a unit of account?
Yeah.
You see, things priced in Bitcoin, oil priced in Bitcoin.
Yes, but I think I agree with Gary that it probably takes a little bit longer than just 10 to 20 years out. But I do think that, eventually it becomes a stable asset that holds its value and again, can probably play a major role in the future of the world. So
let's speak about the future of your personal lives. You both mentioned your kids and your families, and you touched on this earlier. Gareth, you have your assets. You can choose to put it in gold or in Bitcoin or the US dollar and not look at it for 50 years, knowing that your grandkids...
How old is your kid?
3 and 6.
Okay, so, maybe a bit young for your grandkids, but for your kids then.
Yeah. So do I have to choose one? or can I have a diversified
See, that's a
portfolio?
smart answer. Okay, fine. Gary says
You get
choose
two
one.
answers. You get to choose one. Then if it's the right answer, then we're going to let you do the multiple.
Yeah.
We're going to Dogecoin.
Yeah. Peppy coin. Yeah, you have to choose one.
right.
For
For this, I have to choose one.
for this
For
intellectual
50 years from
exercise.
now?
Yeah, 50 years from now.
Your kids are 30, though. How old are you?
I'm 43.
You're 43. So I would look at this like a 30-year,
30-year horizon.
And then they're 35 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when you would give them wealth. You would do it in your...
So
We're getting
so
to
let's
you,
just
Gary.
let's just say I'm putting away that when I die, I'm leaving to my kids. I'm doing Bitcoin.
You're doing Bitcoin. 100 years time?
Bitcoin.
100%.
10 years from now, probably gold, or 5 years from now, gold. But if your horizon's 30 plus years,
No, they're not allowed to touch it for 50 years. You can
yeah.
put it in an asset, and that's it for 50 years untouched.
Easy answer.
Bitcoin.
yeah, Bitcoin.
See,
Actually,
see,
Bitcoin.
100 years.
On this cat, okay?
100 years Bitcoin as well.
Yeah. Anything.
Even though
anything north of-
gold has stood the test of time for thousands of years.
I agree.
Anything
I
could still
agree.
happen to Bitcoin.
That's true.
Again, I like Bitcoin, I like gold, but
I mean,
but
again,
in terms of a
you're
track
pigeonholing
record,
me into
I am
one.
to make this
I
exciting.
would definitely diversify there a little bit, but yeah.
But if you had to pick one,
at this point, yeah.
you would put all your wealth. You're
I had to.
73 years old. It's the only decision you can make from this little exercise. It's a good exercise. At least, that's an issue.
Yeah.
What about you, Gary?
All those Gareth Soloway fans out there.
No, that's why you should, people, I know you're a long-term believer.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish somebody would have told me, dude, you need to load up more and more right now. Like, I didn't, anyway, I'm learning.
If I could just interject one more thing
Please.
on gold in terms of a 100-year horizon, right? We're already building satellites. We're already building spaceships. There is a lot of gold in this universe, and it will be mined. And so if you ask me in 100 years, gold is probably not as rare as it is now. And I think that's part of it too.
Okay, finite supply of gold, but intellectually, we don't know that Bitcoin can't be hacked
That's
in
true.
100
There's
years.
definitely- yes, and you're right about that.
We don't know.
And listen, every asset you invest in has risks. Like, do we know that Satoshi's not going to pop up and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
listen, here's another 21 million." You're right. There's no guarantee.
We might
that-
want him to pop up and say, hey, here's my fork. We might need it.
Or, he pops up and says, guess what? It's the old Trojan horse for CBDCs. We don't know. So
That is true. You're right. And I think it's important to understand is that anything we invest in, and Gary, you know this as much as I do, there's always risks involved, which is why you diversify. But for this, you didn't let me do that.
okay, no.
Well, you can. You got a bonus.
I got made it to the bonus round.
because you answered correctly. I think 50 to 100 years is too long, personally, but especially your age, I think 30 years, because you're done. You're going to make this decision at.
I would if I could do a split, I would do 50% Bitcoin, 30% gold, 20% cash right now. That would make me feel safest in my life.
Okay. Gary, what about you?
100% Bitcoin. Now my horizon, we would be 30 years.
Same horizon, 50 years. You're putting it away and you can't
do
touch
50
it.
years, but I can do 30.
You'll do 50.
Oh, you can do
You're in
50.
good
You can
shape.
do
I
it.
mean, you're healthy.
You're in
We'll see
excellent shape.
Next week after I get back from the Virgin Islands to get my special treatment.
But it's for your kids. You're putting it away. It's not being touched for 50 years. I mean, you'll still be
I
around.
wouldn't do that to my children because I'm going to be gone and I'm not going to force them to spend the money. They're going to be responsible. See, it's a great fear for me, leaving them that much money. Because I think, this is why I can make such an asymmetrical bet and be so heavy. First, my age, I don't need the money. Two, and even the money I make it, I just keep squirreling it away in Bitcoin. If I'm wrong, my kids literally grow up exactly like you and I did, and you did. We turned out okay.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know anyone
Debatable.
except Donald Trump that had some money that actually turned into anything from his dad. I actually think that's a bonus point for him, that his dad gave him money and he didn't turn into a cokehead. Seriously, okay? It's kind of a rare thing if you really look at it. But I'd smash 100% of it into Bitcoin and leave a note for the kids. And I would leave all my weapons with them also. I would leave the little bit of gold and silver I have. I don't necessarily need to sell that. That's just going to kind of show up. But if you ask me, the right thing to do would be over a 30-year time horizon, get rid of all the gold and silver because it's going to be worth nothing. just like oil is going to be worth.
Gold and silver worth nothing in 30 years?
Hey, we're going to space now. We're colonizing the moon.
Worth nothing in
I'm not
30
sure in
years.
30 years.
An
gonna
asset that
farm.
stood the test of time for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
People have been using gold as a store of value, as a means of exchange for thousands
We
of
just
years.
landed a satellite on a moving meteor. Like, there's a lot of things going on.
Gary, that's a huge statement. Gold and silver worth nothing in 30 years,
Well, I think everything goes to near zero.
except for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Some Pepe.
Not yet. I'm going to read the white paper.
All right.
That's the frog one, right?
Yeah, I
The
think so.
frog wrote the white paper for that one.
Now,
yeah.
if I had to do a diversification, like if somebody, hey, this is just stupid. So far, last 15 years, it has not been stupid. In fairness.
I think that's a huge statement. Everything goes to zero in 30 years except for Bitcoin.
Well, everything really does want to go to the marginal cost of just to produce the unit. So that's just math. I mean, natural gas, when I started in the natural gas industry, you watch nat gas, dude. It's probably performing pretty well for you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Nat gas, when I started, when I was 21 years old, 1980-ish, 1981, was $7.63. We turned the entire market into a spot market that's 30 days. There's no long-term contracts. There's no capital flows backed by some Genco. We have 107 billion cubic feet a day in a market that lives on spot. It works perfectly if you stop fucking with it. And it's $1.87. $7.63. You remove all the freaking clubs and the monopolies and the oligopolies. You open the market up to Enron and guys like me and the guys I learned from, and it's $1.87. Bunch of crazy guys. All we did, let the market flow. Let
All right.
anybody that come in participate, but don't intervene in. So,
All right, Gary Cadone puts all of his money in Bitcoin for the next 30 years. Final thought here, seeing again, as we've spoken quite a bit about legacy and children, if you could give your kids one piece of advice, or if there's one lesson that you could make sure your kids know or learn, what would that be?
Man, one lesson, I've made many mistakes.
Or a nugget of wisdom that you would wish to instill in them.
I would hope that I'm instilling within them the work ethic that I have. I hope that they see what I'm doing, how hard I study, how hard I'm always with my laptop looking at charts while they're playing, and I'm playing with them sometimes. Then I go right back to the charts. But it's that work ethic, and I want to make sure that they grow up like I grew up with. And I think you're the same way. I didn't grow up with much, and I think that's what instilled in me this survival mode of got to do what you got to do. You got to work your butt off. If you got to work 3 jobs, you got to work 3 jobs. Climb that ladder. So that's what I hope. I also hope that by having a garden and being kind of off grid when needed, I can show them that they're able to survive without needing things that most people think they need. You don't need everything. Like even car wise, no one needs a sports car. No one needs this and that. You need water. You need food. And you need some lodging over your head, and you need to be happy with that. Once you're happy with that, I think you're good to go.
yeah.
Gary, what about you? If your kids could take one pearl of wisdom, if you could make sure that one lesson has been taught to them, what would it be?
Well, I can't do his.
Well, you could, but you could come up with something more original.
So this is one of my fears. Like, my kids are growing up very different than me. But I can't really hide it. I mean, what am I going to do? Change it? This is who I am.
But that's the privilege of you said money buys you freedom, and that's the privilege.
Great expense. I think what he's doing, it comes with a great expense, because if you look at history, very few kids that come from powerful families or money don't do very much.
And I want to be clear, my kids are very blessed we live in a house. We have pretty much everything we need, but I really try to keep it minimalistic with them.
Yeah.
Meaning I'm not buying them every little toy that's the newest craze, right? It's like, no, I want them at 15 years old to go out and get a job and start earning their money. I'm not going to just hand it out to them. And I think that's what instills in them that need to do for themselves versus just take handouts.
Yeah.
So, Gary, what would you think is the lesson that you would hope your kids?
The message that I would give them is never, ever get in a line and wait for anything. Never follow the herd. We're the large population of anything is going, people, thoughts, philosophy, just go the other way. Study it, but look 180 and look at something else.
How does that apply to Bitcoin, though? The herd is starting to move towards Bitcoin.
There's nobody in Bitcoin. There are no meaningful people or institutions in Bitcoin yet. This is so beginning. This is like the first day of the Disneyland theater, and nobody showed up. Just a bunch of hobos. I don't think any real money's in this. The money that you're getting ready. See, this is where he could go wrong, because the money could just literally just outflow. Like yesterday, Bitcoin's price should have done more. Do you agree with that?
You mean to the upside or the downside?
No, down. It should have pierced down hard.
There was a lot of FOMO, though, that was waiting for a pullback.
$5 or $6 grand, dude. $5 or $6 grand is not a move on like this thing has moved from 35 to 69 in a really short period of time. It should have gone and touched 50, not 57. Like there's a lot of, you can't say, ooh, I've never seen volume like this. I've never seen a setup like this in my entire life, ever. And this product is different. You can't make it anymore. Like when electricity blips, like if demand just stops, I've seen electricity sell for negative $1,000 a meg.
Remember, oil was negative for a while.
Totally. Like when you have too much, that's the variable unit issue. It's the next unit, that one unit. It's not the people that are holding Bitcoin right now. It's what does it take to move that next unit out of that wallet? And clearly there was a guy yesterday with $68 million worth of Bitcoin, tried to hit 69. He has the right to do that. He's held the damn stuff since 2010. And people are bitching at him. Oh, weak hands. Like, weak hands? My God, man. He's probably held on the whole time, right? Yeah. And he's probably got a bunch more.
But your words of advice to your kids, go against the herd, go in the other direction.
Never listen to a bunch of people. Like, don't, just never. Just always go against the herd, fight the message, and make sure that you actually believe in what other people believe in, because most people are wrong. That's why 98% of people die broke, and their kids have to take care of them. It's so sad. So, yeah, get in control of your life. Work for somebody great. Like, go to work for somebody really, really brilliant, even if they don't pay you a penny. To me, that's the best. Man, he should pay me to have his kid. This is what I would, hey, I'll pay you instead of sending him to college. Just give my kid one year with you as an apprentice. He could pay 20 grand to me, and he would be, instead of paying $250 to Duke.
What are you saying, Gareth? Yeah, we have a mentorship program.
like
ready.
But it's a no-brainer, right? Because, I'm going to fire her if she doesn't show up on the first day.
Yep.
I'm going to be able to give her the discipline, and he can't do that to her. And the same with my kids. My kids are going to look, oh, you're firing me?
I'll mentor them for you.
He fired them. They'd be like, oh, my God, man. I've disappointed another human being. So,
all right. So be contrarian, critical thinkers. Don't go with the flow.
Michelle.
Now, that's great advice. That is great advice. Well, I'm going to end it on that note. I mean, can't do better than that. It was fantastic chatting with you both. Really, I got tremendous insight and lots of pearls of wisdom, nuggets of good advice. So thank you so much. Gareth Soloway, Gary Cadone, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And as always, thank you to the Kitco viewers for watching. From me, Michelle Makori, and the rest of the Kitco team and the Verified Investing team. We'll see you next time.